This episode is brought to you by Living Proof Church, a non-denominational, spirit-filled church in Araby, Louisiana. Services are held Sundays at 10 a.m. and live streamed on YouTube. Visit us at livingproof-church.com to plan your visit.
You are listening to Commission 6-8.
It is Wednesday, December 3rd, in the greatest country on earth. I am your host, Randy Millette, and this is Commission 6-8. Today is part 2 of my interview with real estate investor and entrepreneur Daniel Kwok. We continue the conversation on immigration, the economy, his faith, and as always, we're going to see what the Bible has to say about it. So let's go! All right, guys, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you get notified every time there's a new episode. Follow me on X, tell a friend, help us spread the word for the show, and please go leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, we're going to get into part 2 of my conversation with Daniel here in a minute, but first I just wanted to say I've known Daniel and his brother Sam for about 3 years now, and they've been mentors of mine in real estate investment and in business, and they are perfect examples of immigrants who come to this country and contribute to society. They own multiple businesses, they employ people, they really make the lives of everyone around them better. And they are standard bearers for not just success, but ethical success, because they define their wins not by how much money they make, but how they can help people on their journey towards success. One of Daniel's favorite quotes that he says all the time is, if you want to have something that you've never had before, you have to do things you've never done, learn things you've never learned, and be something you've never been. And him and his brother strive to do that every day. And I believe that as followers of Christ, that God has blessed them, not only because of their work ethic, but because of how they genuinely like to see other people succeed. So let's go ahead and jump back into part 2 with Daniel Kwok.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm all about immigration. I believe immigrants, have contributed greatly to society, but if it doesn't take long, man, to figure out what the downsides and the consequences of unchecked illegal immigration becomes. Look at Europe. There's so many examples of that all around the world, and I don't think it's, and this is not me pointing towards my finger towards one group of people, but I don't think that it's a coincidence that the countries oftentimes with the strongest immigration policies tend to have the most well-balanced economies per capita. Mm-hmm. They tend to have a higher happiness score amongst their citizens. And again, it's not pointing towards that immigration is bad, but usually if you have strict immigration, it usually means you have a system and structure of order within society. Right, that there is a lot of logic and reasoning behind what these laws are. And not only that, but they are actually enforced.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a common misconception with the right or with MAGA is that we're targeting a group of people or people that look a certain way or immigrants altogether. Like we don't want immigrants here. I know that, if you hadn't immigrated here, right, I wouldn't have read your book and I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in right now, And if we can go back from the beginning of this country, immigration is not the problem. The system of immigration is there for a reason. But like you said, unchecked, mass, illegal immigration, it not only does it destroy the fabric of the country, not only does it jeopardize the citizens, but it also diminishes what you and your family did. And all the other immigrants who came here the right way and spent thousands of dollars that they didn't have. Put forth the work. And then also we're going to get to, I have another question to ask you, but what would you say to people who have empathy? Because a lot of us, and especially like in the Christian world, we feel sorry. You hear these stories about families getting ripped apart and things like that. What would you say to people that have empathy for people who came to the U.S. just seeking a better life? Maybe they didn't do it the right way. Maybe they didn't have the means. Maybe they were blocked some kind of way.
Yeah. To them, I'd say, listen, empathy is never a wrong thing. It's never a bad thing. However, if it's unchecked and if it's not supported by truth and facts, then it actually becomes rather dangerous.
Sure.
Right. So I'll give you an analogy. Right. So like I remember when my wife Lisa. Right. I know your wife and I have your wife and my wife have the same name.
Yeah.
Right. But when my wife and I were engaged, right, or when we were even dating, and we were young, right. I was dating Lisa. I was 23, 24 years old. Right. Lisa is actually exactly 1 year older than I am, so we're the same age. And obviously we're both followers of Christ, and there's certain activities that we didn't want to partake in before we got married. Mm-hmm. Right? I think we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
So, I remember a pastor, a friend of mine at the time was like, look, like, because, I was all about, okay, like, I want to make sure we don't do it. So, like, I'm going to apply these rules, and I'm going to make sure I focus on my work, and I'm going to distract myself, and I'm going to try to subdue it. And I had a great pastor friend of mine that says, hey, look, like, passion and a desire for the woman that God's given you is not a bad thing. It's never a bad thing. But obviously when it is unchecked, it can be very dangerous long term, right? I mean, it's a lot like fire, right? Like fire it can be used to cook food. It could be used as a bonfire, right? Create great memories. But unchecked, it could do a lot of damage.
Be very destructive.
Very destructive. Right. And a lot of times it's our emotions that the enemy will try to use to create destruction, to create separation. Right. And so, that's why I'm such a big advocate of the Holy Spirit. Right. Because there's so many times where I experience a very extreme emotion, let's just say anger. And I need to lean on the Holy Spirit to kind of check myself, right, and make sure, right. It says in Scripture, it's okay to be angry, but it's okay to not sin out of your anger. That's what we don't want to do, right? In your anger, do not sin, and do not. And it even talks about it with parenthood, right? It says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, right? So I don't think empathy is ever a bad thing. It's amazing. It's one of the things I really respect about progressives, about for liberals. Like I really respect that they have a strong desire for justice, and they have a strong desire for empathy. But again, a lot of those emotions, unchecked by the truth and facts and what's actually happening, not what the media says, but what is actually happening in day-to-day society, that becomes incredibly dangerous, right? So to them, I'd say, look, like, continue having compassion and empathy for those individuals, but let's really make sure that we know what's actually going on before we start pointing fingers. Mm-hmm. Let's read a little into history. Let's see what else is going on around the world. But at the same time, my response would be the same that I would tell anybody, whether they're a MAGA Christian or whether they're the most progressive, liberal person in the world. If you're going to do something about it, like, do something about it. Right. If you're that passionate about immigration and you're that passionate about helping people, great. Go write a check. Like, go take these people out to breakfast. Host them in your own home.
Yeah, like, right? the time they dropped off all the immigrants on Nantucket Island, or was it Nantucket? I don't know, one of those islands up in Boston. Like, no, we want them here, just not here.
Correct. Yeah. And by the way, I say the same thing to MAGA Christians, right? Where it's like, listen, if you feel that strongly against abortion, great. Like, go help that teenage girl who, didn't know the consequences of sex, apparently. Yeah. Right. And made a mistake, and now she's pregnant. Right? Like, go help her out, because I can assure you she's not feeling all that great about, being pregnant either, right? She feels like incredible regret. There's so much shame, right? And probably the last thing that she needs is somebody to get in her face and tell her that she's a demon for trying to abort the baby.
Right.
That's the last thing we need to be doing, right? So to a lot of those people, right, and that's where the ignorance comes in, right? It's emotion unchecked by anything else.
Yeah. And something else, this is what I wanted to hit on, something you said earlier. I wanted to talk a little bit about assimilation, because we talk about immigrants coming here and contributing versus, in contrast, to people who come and become dependent off of the U.S. public services or the U.S. tax dollar. Case in point, you came here, you and your brother have, I don't know how many companies it is now, almost all of them generating. I'm going to feel free to flex if I get this wrong, if I undershoot. all of them generating multi-million dollars a year, right? And you have employees. How many people you have working for you? Ish, ballpark.
Yeah, in the core companies, probably somewhere in the 40s to 50s range.
Right. So immigrating to the United States, not only assimilating, in terms of making Michael Jordan your favorite basketball player, but actually contributing, employing people, and contributing to society. And that's the immigration that made America great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the biggest topics right now, right, and if we're going to be frank, is the Muslim population.
Yeah.
Right? Like we see them, have their prayers, right? There's also cases and files of violence, right, from those particular groups of individuals, and we see it in obviously places like Dearborn, Michigan, and in states like Minnesota, right? It's getting more and more and more. Now, I'll tell you this: 99% of Muslims that I know personally are great people. Mm-hmm. Like, they're incredibly kind, they're incredibly nice, right? Like, I play basketball with them, I eat with them, and I love these guys, right? I love them. They're amazing, and they're so incredibly kind, right? That being said, when our family immigrated here, right, and when I immigrated here, I had the understanding that, hey, at the end of the day, there are things that made this country successful compared to other countries around the world or in the past. I cannot, right? Like, I cannot speak out against or be critical or say that that's wrong when those very principles have helped build the society that I am now benefiting off of, right? There you go. My immigration just showed.
There you go.
Like, it's the same thing when I hear, like young, let's just say a liberal woman complaining about capitalism and how it's the worst thing in the world. And in my head, I'm like, dude, you cannot complain about capitalism from an iPhone. You can't. Like, you might be right. You're just the wrong person to say it.
Right.
So for me, right, like, and this, I guess this is kind of my message to all immigrants out there, right? Like, this is my stance, right? When you are directly benefiting off of a particular country, society, and our structures, in this case, like what you mentioned, a lot of programs that are funded by U.S. tax dollars, you cannot take the hierarchy, moral, economical, spiritual, emotional, mental, you cannot claim a hierarchy ideology when you are the one benefiting off of that ideology that you are claiming you are better than. You might be right. Like, there's a lot of things that I ask questions to my Islamic brothers and sisters that I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, I agree with that. That's great. But do I believe that they should enforce and try to employ that ideology to others here in America? Probably not. Right? Like, you can, like, for me, like, even within our family, even within the different circles that I'm a part of, like, I'll mention, hey, like, in my home country of South Korea, this is what I believe works really well. But am I going to go as far as to say, well, if we don't do this here, we're idiots?
No, of course not, because just like we were talking about the clips taken out of context, that works well in South Korea because it's in South Korea. The Muslim population can't come here and enforce Sharia law the same way we can't go to Saudi Arabia and enforce democracy or Christianity. Yeah.
So, like, and that was actually the primary point that I was driving was with Sharia law, mm-hmm. right? Like, you cannot try to force that in a society in which you are benefiting off of, right? Like, you can't do it. And me personally, do I think Sharia law is good? Absolutely not. As for me, as a person that loves Jesus, right? As a person that is, a girl dad. Right? Like,
yeah, you and me both.
Right? Like, I when I read about Sharia, and I read the Quran, I read all about Sharia law, mm-hmm. right? Like, I don't think it's a great idea. I think it leads to destruction. I think there's been tons of evidence that supports that statement. So again, for them to try to enforce that in the same country that they're directly receiving benefits from, I don't think is appropriate. No.
Right, and there's evidence of that. Look at Tehran pre-1970, right?
Yeah.
Versus after Sharia law, and I could go through 20 examples.
You are listening to Commission 6-8.
Today's sponsor is freespoke.com. Freespoke.com is a search engine web browser that you need to be using, like today, right? We know that Google and Meta, big tech, they've all admitted to censoring political speech. And we know that they collect and sell your data. At Freespoke, they give you both sides to every story. They give you all the information. They give you political perspectives, and they label media bias left, right, or middle, so you know the information that you're consuming. When we do research for these shows, my producer and I exclusively use freespoke.com. Now, you can download the app and start browsing today for free. But if you want an ad-free experience, subscribe and give them promo code COM68. That's promo code COM, COM68. That will give you 35% off a yearly subscription. So make the switch today, use freespoke.com, and let's hold big tech accountable. That's freespoke.com. Think for yourself.
You are listening to Commission 6-8.
Let's switch gears real quick, and I know you have to go soon. So I wanted to talk about, because since you're an expert on the subject of housing, right, real estate investor, you do multifamily, and even when we were in Chicago, you were giving us a lot of stats about where the housing market's going. And I'm going to play you a clip real quick of J.D. Vance, and this is kind of a perfect segue.
I know that there are a lot of people out there, Sean, who are saying things are expensive. And we have to remember they're expensive because we inherited this terrible inflation crisis from the Biden administration. But you've already seen signs that things are getting better. The price of eggs has gone way down. The price of energy has gone way down. The price of gasoline has gone way down. And as we know, when the price of energy goes down, that starts to filter out into the entire economy. But that also takes a little bit of time. There's another component of this, Sean, which to me is maybe the most important because I care so much about our young people being able to afford a good life. A lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who were taking houses that ought by right go to American citizens. And at the same time, we weren't building enough new houses to begin with, even for the population that we had. So what we're doing is trying to make it easier to build houses, trying to make it easier to build factories and things like that so that people have good jobs. We're also getting all of those illegal aliens out of our country, and you're already seeing it start to pay some dividends.
So that was Vance basically blaming in part the illegal immigration problem with the rising cost of houses. So how do you interpret that?
Yeah, I mean he's absolutely right. Right. So I mean it's at the end of the day, I believe economics is just simple supply and demand. Yeah. Right. I mean, when you have more individuals than you have actual housing units available, well, the cost of that supply is going to increase by and large. Right. Which is why yes, there's a housing issue, but what people don't talk about is there's housing issues with one particular asset class.
Which is
right. And when I say asset class, I mean the price range, because like, I live in Illinois. Mm-hmm. Right. I guarantee you we don't have a shortage of $1 million homes. We don't. Like if you go on Zillow, you'll find $1 million, $2 million, $3 million homes everywhere. But it's because obviously there's a shortage of people that can afford that. But there is a shortage. It's the other way when you look at houses that are below, let's just say $400,000, is you have a lot of individuals that qualify for those, but not enough of the inventory on that end. And part of the reason is exactly what J.D. Vance says. Mm-hmm. Right? Is like there's immigrants who are going to rent. There's immigrants who are going to buy houses, right? There's a shortage of that everywhere, right? In fact, I read a stat where it says like 30 years ago, the average age of the first-time homebuyer, it jumped like 8 years.
Yeah, I just read one saying it's up to 40. It's up to 40 years old.
Yeah, I mean, which is absolutely nuts, right? And so, I mean, he's exactly right. Either A, we have to deport more illegal immigrants, right? Or we have to build more houses, right? Especially in areas that demand it.
Yeah, and how do you see the current, the Fed and the interest rates affecting that supply and demand?
Yeah, I mean, they lowered rates, right? So they lowered rates once in September and again in late October this past month, and I think that's definitely a step in the right direction. But if you look deeper into why people can't afford a house, it's not that they don't qualify; it's that the biggest hurdle is actually the down payment. Mm-hmm. Right? Like most Americans don't have enough saved up to be able to do that. Now, do I believe it's because of inflation? Absolutely. I 100% believe that. Vance mentioned that during the Biden administration, inflation was at a 50-year high, and he's not wrong. When you have all these social programs and people don't understand that the U.S. economy, it's all tied together. It's all one big ecosystem, right? It's like Yellowstone, right? And the wolves. If you get rid of the wolves, man, before you know it, next spring, right? There's something that you never thought would be connected that gets affected by it, and that's what the U.S. economy is. So, a lot of times when you have an issue with housing, right? Well, it's because of multitudes of things that have happened before, leading up to it, 3, 4, or 5 years leading up to it, that has caused that very thing. Inflation is one, absolutely. But at the same time, and I'm not saying the boomers are right. If anything, economically and historically, the stats and the numbers will tell you that the boomer generation actually had it the best. If you're talking about at what time window they entered the economy, when assets that they owned soared, when wages soared, it will show, like the numbers show, that the boomers had it the best when it comes to actual economic advantages. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, my generation of millennials somewhat kind of had it the worst, right? But I will also tell you, right, that young millennials and Gen Z kids today, they do, whether they want to admit it or not, there is a different mentality of how they view money. Because if you look at boomers and Gen X, right, it was all about saving to buy and to get an asset, right? Like, like whenever I meet somebody who's 40 years or older, right, like they usually want the McMansion. They want the super large house. A lot of people in my generation and a lot of Gen Z, they actually prefer the opposite. Mm-hmm. What they would prefer is they want the 2,000 square foot house, but they want to take 6 vacations a year or 4 or 5 vacations a year. So nowadays it's all about lifestyle as we've become more of a consumer and when I say consumer oriented society, I'm not saying that the rate in which people are willing to consume change. It's the convenience of how people consume has changed. Because now all of a sudden when we watch TV, like for example, yesterday I was getting some work done and I was watching Thursday Night Football, that's on Amazon, right? And the way that Amazon and people watching this podcast know exactly what I'm talking about, right? When you're on the ad break, Amazon and Roku has an option where you can click on to buy that product right then and there.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't even have to click. You can speak to it and do it.
Absolutely.
You don't even have to move.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like, and same thing with the stuff like TikTok Shop, right? Like TikTok has done an incredible job for their shareholders and their owners at making it super easy for people to impulse buy, right? So the psychology and the convenience of how people consume sometimes, right, just impulsively has massively changed, mm-hmm. right? Because if you think about like 30, 40 years, like when I was growing up, if you wanted something, you had to go to the store and buy it.
Yeah.
Like that's what you had to do. Like I remember being a kid and watching cartoons, like there would be commercials for this really cool toy. What I had to do is I had to beg my parents to go to the store, Toys R Us back then, and buy that toy. Now these kids, right? Like everybody has a smartphone, right? Even the kids, and they can just conveniently buy it on their own or with their parents' credit card, like super conveniently.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's also something. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Please.
There's also something about the tangible holding the money. Going to the store, saving up for it. I feel like we're missing that part of the education of money.
That's right.
Like even my daughter.
Right.
My daughter's 5 years old. She's like, she wants a card where she can just give it to the lady and get what she wants because what's coming out of it, she has no idea.
Correct.
Right? We try to explain it, and I feel like she's only 5, but I feel like there's a lot of 20-year-olds that still have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you tie that in with the fact that financial education has not kept up with the consumption technology and convenience of today, yeah, of course you're going to have a generation of people that can't afford to buy a home because they don't have a down payment. Because they have no problem going to Starbucks and paying $8 for a drink or buying 3 things off of Amazon and TikTok Shop that same day for a total of $100, $120, right? Yeah, of course. Like, do you think 40 years ago people were paying $8 for a coffee? No.
Yeah.
So like I get it, right? That inflation's very much the primary reason. I get it that because of it, assets, especially real estate, has inflated alongside with it, but so hasn't anything else, including, right? And I like how a lot of people of my generation love to blame the lack of wages, and that's true. There is truth to that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also have to, in my opinion, look at the true reason, which is that financial education has not caught up with the acceleration of consumer technology and convenience. It hasn't. And that's really, really hurt the first-time home buyer of today.
Yeah, well, and financial education is not something that's provided. You have to actively seek financial education. I didn't learn about money till I came across your brother's video, and then I got into ABC, and and I started reading the authors, Robert Kiyosaki and Napoleon Hill, and I'm in my 30s when this happens.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not blaming my parents because they weren't educated on money either. We just kind of figure it out. But all these throwaway classes in high school, which really is just extended adolescence more than anything else. Why aren't we?
And let's talk about this, man. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but let's talk about this. Is why is it a surprise to us that it's so hard for people in their late 20s and 30s to buy a home when 13 years ago we were all told to get student loans?
Yeah.
Like, why are we shocked? And like, a lot of people know this, but the way that those student loans were structured should be considered predatory lending. Mm. It absolutely should have been considered predatory lending, because how many people do we know that have faithfully made payments on their student loans, but yet haven't even made a dent on the actual balance of their student loans?
Right. And right? Never will. And wage doesn't reflect that.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so I mean, do I believe that if these colleges and universities actually did a great job at preparing people for a career that we would have this issue? No, absolutely not. I think universities and colleges today are completely blind and ignorant to what actually makes money in today's society, mm-hmm. and what actually is good, right, for today. I know more TikTokers and influencers that make money than people who have doctorate degrees. Right. And I know a lot of people are complaining that, oh my gosh, like, you have these 15-year-olds making $3-4 million a year through. Well, yeah, that's what that's called? It's called change.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also a lot of entrepreneurship among that generation.
Yeah, that's right. It's called cultural adaptation. I'm sure 100 years ago, or I don't know, I'm sure that when TVs first came out, people were shocked that you could make money being on TV. I'm sure when the internet first came out, people were like, wow, you can make money on the internet? Mm-hmm. I'm sure. And it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing nowadays, So again, I don't think we should be shocked that we have an affordability issue, but I also think there's way more than what people would assume is the reason why housing is so unaffordable today.
Sure. So what advice would you give to that generation, to the Gen Zers who are trying to find success?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at today, I read a stat that says something along the lines of we consume more information and stimulus in like 1 hour than what a normal person would consume in like a week, like 20, 30 years ago. And so I mean, I don't think I should even be giving out advice because I'm already starting to see it happen. Like, especially with like the young Gen Zers and Gen Z, they're actually more fiscally conservative than my generation was, right? They're actually, there's a lot of studies that show that they budget more, that they save more, that they've kind of realized, like, it's kind of like with this thing, right? Like we've all realized that, wow, like this thing is very distracting. It's very easy to scroll and doom scroll and take time away from our family. So you actually see people now more than ever choosing to not have their cell phones with them, to leave it at home or leave it in the car or install software that mitigate time spent on the phone. So, I mean, I think it's already happening. I think time kind of has this wonderful thing where it just balances everything out. And I think with it, you see a lot of people also not choosing to go to college. Yeah. Choosing not, instead opting for trade school, right? I mean, there's a massive wave of young people that are learning to become electricians, learning to become plumbers, and learning to become, construction workers. And I think it's great.
It's because our generation left a huge wage gap. Trade gap. A huge trade gap, because we were always taught, go to college. You don't know what you want to do, figure it out in college. You don't know how you get paid for it, take out a student loan, go for general studies until you figure it out. Then you drop out, but you owe the student loan.
Yeah.
So they've learned from our mistakes, and good on them.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. I never went to college, and I know you. You went
I'm
to
a dropout, man.
You're a dropout.
Yeah, that's
we'll
right.
Call it a successful college dropout. All right, Daniel.
Right.
I appreciate your time, man. Thanks for the conversation. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, if they want to just go on our YouTube channel, The Kwok Brothers. If you guys want to follow me on my Instagram, I mean, it's just my name. So I just hired a couple people to help me start posting a lot of short form stuff. And so like I love talking about real estate. I love talking about entrepreneurship. I love obviously incorporating a lot of what God's taught me in my journey with those things. I hate being in front of like the YouTube camera or like creating shorts. Like I'm the guy where it's like, I just want to be in the corner by myself and crush it, right? And have nobody know about it. But I do feel that if I didn't share the things that God has taught me, it would cause a lot of people to fall into similar traps that I fall into. And there's a part of me that's like, okay, I have to be open and giving and sharing with this stuff. So that's where people can find me.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And God bless you for it. And I hope success to you and your brother. And of course, tell Lisa I said hi. Kiss the baby for me. Thanks for being here, man.
I mean, this was fun, man. Thanks for having me on.
Daniel Kwok, ladies and gentlemen. All right, guys, if you're interested in finding out more about Daniel's mentorship programs, I've provided links in the description. Thank you guys for listening today. And again, I pray blessings over you and your family. I pray God blesses you coming in and you going out. I pray peace, power, and prosperity. And remember that you live in the greatest country on earth, and it's up to you to keep it.
This has been Commission 6-8.
I invite you into the roller coaster ride of my life in the award-winning book, For Such a Time as This, How I Navigated the World of Multifamily Real Estate to Close My First Deal, and How You Can Too. From the very first page, you'll dive into the raw emotions of ambition and resilience, facing one crushing setback after another. Yet, through each trial, I discovered new depths of determination and learned invaluable lessons in negotiation and perseverance. This isn't just a story about overcoming financial hurdles. It's about the profound personal growth that comes from navigating life's toughest challenges. It's about faith, family, and the unwavering belief that setbacks are not the end, but the beginning of something greater. For Such a Time as This, How I Navigated the World of Multifamily Real Estate to Close My First Deal, and How You Can Too, by award-winning author Randy Millette, available on Amazon.